Hey y'all, here OS Reviews. In this video, we're taking a quick look at a mini haul of 3 digital watches I picked up from AliExpress. So for those unfamiliar, this is a e-commerce site owned by Alibaba, and it's one of the largest marketplaces where you can shop for items typically from China, and they offer very competitive pricing. And just as a footnote, AliExpress are holding a back-to-school sale, which starts here in late August. So different sellers participating in the sale can have discounts up to 80% off site-wide. It might be a good opportunity to shop for any supplies that you're looking for. And I also have a couple of coupon codes that can be applied at checkout just for reference. So let's take a closer look at what these 3 digital watches are. These aren't necessarily smartwatches that we have been seeing more commonly, in that they don't come with any wireless connectivity like Bluetooth to bind to your phone. Rather, it's more like a digital watch of yesteryear, but with just a couple more smart features tucked inside. For instance, one of the items that we have here is the North Edge Apache 46, a relatively low-cost watch. However, as a built-in barometer for measuring air pressure, as well as built-in compass, you don't really have to charge the battery every couple of days. It should last for roughly 1 to 2 years before you have to replace the cell inside. And although it doesn't come with syncing capabilities for notifications, it still has plenty of other health tracking stats, such as a built-in pedometer for measuring steps, and you have utilities like a stopwatch, countdown timer, as well as even a built-in thermometer on here as well, and it is waterproof up to 5 ATMs or 50 meters. And looks like they've styled this after a tactical watch, so making it a little bit more rugged and durable looking. And here's some of the other stats it's capable of tracking, including even some simple sports like running, cycling, swimming, and also touts a tempered glass finish on the front. Now the next watch we'll be taking a look at is one called Hearkent. This one sells for a little bit more, but still relatively low cost, and what makes it kind of unique is there is built-in radio antennas that makes it an atomic watch that can automatically set the time and calibrate it using the kind of radio signals over the air. So you don't have to fiddle around the controls to manually set it up. And as you're switching between 4 different time zones in the US, Pacific, Mountain, or Central Time, it'll automatically change by itself as you are traveling, which is pretty convenient. And this one also has a built-in loudspeaker, so if you are giving it to someone with hearing disability, the watch itself can also speak back the time as well as the current date, and again uses a nylon strap that should be a bit more comfortable to wear. That being said, compared to the North Edge watch, this one does not come with any barometer, compass functions, nor does it have any pedometer for step counting, so the main features here are going to be just the radio controlled auto time setting, which actually happens every night at 3 a.m. interestingly enough, for the calibration. Now, last but not least, the final watch that we have is the most expensive. It's kind of like a hybrid smartwatch because you have a small display at the bottom and then still an analog watch face that will spin around to tell you the time. Compared to an all-digital watch, the cost here is definitely higher at around $80. This model, though, is still built by North Edge, which, as a reminder, is actually not our first time checking out one of their products. We have reviewed one of their other float hybrid watches in the past, which we did really like at the time, using that small display to show you basic notifications, kind of like an alternative to some of the Withings hybrid watches, however with a more rugged design going on. In comparison though, this Gavia model actually does not come with Bluetooth built in either. So just like the other 2 watches here, it's a dedicated unit, doesn't really pair with your phone. So functionality is actually quite similar to the earlier model that we talked about. It's just the appearance might be a little bit more deluxe with the kind of dual display design going on. The build quality might be using a bit more metal alloys, but still touts functions like the altimeter, barometer, compass, pedometer, as well as withstanding, in this particular watch, a higher temperature range if you're using it in more extreme conditions. In fact, it's waterproof up to 20 bars or 200 meters, so that's going even past the 50-meter range of the 5 ATM standard. This is going to be kind of an ultra-rugged watch. But at the same time, because of the analog watch on top, you can still use it in more business professional settings, and it still looks pretty clean. And in fact, they are claiming that it might be a little inspired by some of the flight decks inside of airplanes as far as all the kind of mechanics and dials are concerned. Now, interestingly, the hands of the clock can also be used to act as the compass, since again there isn't a larger full display on the model, so it will actually point in the direction of north, for instance, and then spin back to then tell you the time again. Moving into the unboxing, interestingly, the North Edge boxes are exactly the same, so it's actually hard to tell apart the specific model without opening them up. But it looks like the first one that we have here is going to be the Gavia. Down below here, we are just presented with the watch on a padded pillow. Pretty good presentation if you're giving it as a gift idea. And further down below here, we also have just a quick user guide, and that is pretty much it, because again, there is no charging involved. They are all using cell-based batteries. First impressions being that this watch is definitely on the hefty side. It's quite weighty and actually pretty thick to accommodate all the added kind of military specifications, the higher water resistance and pressure bearing. So this is definitely a model that is, I think, geared more for folks that have larger wrists. Otherwise, you're going to definitely feel the weight a bit more as a consequence. Here's a quick size comparison with a few other smartwatches that we've seen in the past, which are also considered larger, more rugged, like the TicWatch series. But the North Edge is thicker as well as substantially heavier. GTR 2 series smartwatch, which is also similar on the front, but also substantially thicker there on the North Edge. Definitely feels very durable and rugged, however. Now, all of the dials here on the front are also glow in the dark. So as long as it's exposed to a couple of minutes of sunlight, you can tell that the dials will be illuminated for a couple of minutes when you are going into a darker zone. And there's actually a total of 5 different buttons on this watch, 2 here on the left and 3 here on the right. So a lot of controls going on, and right now we are in the compass mode. So as you can tell, as we are tilting the watch around, it's always going to be pointing in the direction of, say, northwest. Now, you can also see some of the labels on the sides that will give you an indication of the buttons correspond to, just to make it a little easier to remember. So the top left corner here can be pressed to turn on the backlight, although that's only available for the bottom LCD screen and not the larger mechanical dial, which is why they have the glow-in-the-dark treatment on the surface instead there. We can also press on the mode key here basically to exit, and now go back into telling the time, in addition to the date information here at the very bottom. So we can tap there once again to tell us number of steps that we've walked using the built-in accelerometer. Allows us to check out functions like the countdown timer, alarm, as well as go into a second time zone. So right now it's showing the info for New York City, but this can be set to any other time zone of your choice. So technically you are able to show up to 2 different times simultaneously, one on the digital display, one on the mechanical dial. So if you are a road warrior and you're trying to convert it into another, again, time zone, that might be convenient. Now the next function here is going to be the altimeter. Pretty easy to gauge and relatively fast as well to get a measurement of. The final function here is going to tell us the current air temperature as well as the current air pressure. So it's pretty simple to operate. We can still see the time information, by the way, simultaneously with the air pressure information if you want a slightly different view, cycling back and forth there at the bottom. And then we can just, again, exit into this main menu. Favorite mode though is definitely the compass. Seeing the hands there shift and move as you're looking at different directions is actually quite cool. Similarly, we can press on the top key here as well to change the display here on the top section when we are looking at the barometer. So instead we have a kind of graph chart as an alternative visualization form, or we can choose back into that digital display mode and again cycle into options like the temperature as well as the time. So you have a few different quote-unquote ways of adjusting the watch dial. Also, in case you're storing the watch and you're not using it, you can reduce the battery drain by tapping on the light button as well as the bottom kind of air pressure key at the same time for just a couple of seconds, and that will put the entire watch into sleep mode. Last but not least, long holding on the M key here for just a few more seconds, the mode button allows you to go into advanced settings. So on here, we can change properties like the time, date, units. For example, if you want to convert between options like degrees Celsius versus degrees Fahrenheit for the thermometer, as well as change between 12-hour versus 24-hour format. So these basic properties can all be adjusted based on your preferences. Taking a final peek, the back here again is constructed out of stainless steel, and we have just some of the specs reiterated again on the Gavia. You can remove some of the chains in the buckle if you have a small screwdriver, if you want to shorten the length of the chain, if you have a smaller wrist, and then the strap here is also then closing off using stainless steel as well. Closes with a pretty satisfying click, and then you can open it again just by pressing on it. That being said, since this model is a bit more premium, I would have liked them to include that small screwdriver in the box because you also need to use it to open up the back to get access to the battery. And of course, the straps themselves are removable. So if you wanted to swap it out for something like a silicone texture instead, that's completely customizable based on your preferences. Moving into the more affordable North Edge watch next, this one here again is packaged in a very similar way. We also get that pillow-like presentation. First impressions being that this Apache 46 watch is also built very well. It's definitely lighter compared to the Gavia, as you can tell there, which is even thicker to accommodate the extra moving parts, but it's still built out of metal, so it does have a nice density to it. The use of stainless steel is a little bit more scarce. The back plate here is stainless steel, but then the side rails are built out of aluminum alloy instead, a little bit cheaper to manufacture versus 100% stainless steel on that more expensive model. But some pretty interesting texture work going on, and the screen itself is still relatively easy to read. It's a transflective LCD screen, making it a decent choice for outdoor purposes. This one is 100% digital, as you can tell, so we have just the kind of date information as well as the time. And very interestingly, we have almost the exact same control scheme with 5 buttons, 2 here on the left as well as 3 here on the right. So it should feel very familiar compared to what we just saw. For instance, the top left here is still used to activate the backlight. Here's a quick example of how it works in a darker environment. Actually not bad. And we are also able to press on the mode key here just to cycle through the pedometer function, create different alarms that we can ring on the device, as well as check out the countdown timer and stopwatch functions. T2 represents a second time zone that you can have here as well, such as if you are looking at New York or San Diego, something like that, a different city, and then going back into the current homepage. Then tapping on the top here, we can go into the barometer mode. Now, since the LCD screen is larger, you can tell how the font is going to be maybe a little more easily legible here. You can check out also the current air temperature as well as the time down below as well. And if we tap on it again, we can also change the information being displayed slightly in terms of units and also get that digital visualization graph that we saw there on the other Gavia watch as well. Bottom key here for the altimeter can also be shown instead, so you can again cycle through some of those modes of visualizing the information and then exit on it once again. Now, one thing I do like about this watch, though, is you can tell the outer parameter actually has these little tick marks that is representing the second per second count. So once the ring here reaches all the way to the top, you're going to tell that the time will increase by 1 minute. Record means that you are saving a current sports session that you want to track. So you can also take a look at your steps converted into distance as well as calories burned during the entire session, as well as how long you've been performing that activity. And the pacer mode here also can act as a metronome, so it keeps count and will beep every few seconds, as you can tell. You can increase and decrease the speed as well based on your preferences. So you can actually use it if you are, for example, playing an instrument, or perhaps more practically, if to be aware of your cadence, you want to go at a continuous rhythm as you're training. This watch also seems to hold data for up to 7 days into built-in memory. Again, there is no Bluetooth, so you can't really bind it to your phone and save historical records for longer, which is a bit of a shame, but at least you can check out some of your recent exercise sessions. And again, the button here on the right in the middle is going to correspond to a compass, so you're able to take a look at, again, the direction as you are tilting the watch. Gotta say that the Gavia, though, with the moving arms, definitely is a little cooler in this sense. But you do have, again, small arrows on the side of the LCD screen that will be changing based on the direction that you're tilting the watch in. Once again, though, we're able to long hold on the mode key to jump into more advanced settings, adjusting properties like the time, as well as units, and a couple of other advanced settings you can change on here include turning on or off the mono kind of beep speaker there. So the overall UI is pretty much the same as the more expensive watch. For what it's worth, though, I personally do like the nylon strap a little bit better. I feel like this is more of a comfortable material when you're actually wearing it, and actually might not be a bad choice. It's just a budget, durable digital watch. And now onto our final model, which is going to be from, again, a different brand this time around. I've got just a quick user guide there inside, and that is more or less it. So this one also uses that nylon fabric band, which I do think is quite comfy, along with a stainless steel kind of strap here on the very edge. Now this one here is going to be substantially lighter compared to the other North Edge watches, so I think it's more of a daily wearable, and even if you have smaller wrists, it can be more comfortable as well, since North Edge are going after that added military endurance on their devices. The straps are once again removable and adjustable, and it looks like they're using quote-unquote a Japan battery, at least the one from the factory by default, and they're touting some of the, again, features like the metal build. Alright, so waking up the watch from the standby mode, we're going to tap on the time as well as the mode key here simultaneously for a couple of seconds. Again, this command can also be long pressed to turn it off, similar to the North Edge watches. Another transflective LCD screen that makes it easy to read like e-ink when you are outdoors. And impressively, even though it's obviously not 3 a.m. right now, the minute that I turned it on, the time has been pretty much properly calibrated. There might be a 1 minute difference between the two here, but honestly, that's going to be more than good enough. And again, just booting it up, the time has been set up. You don't have to click on any keys to get that up and running, which is pretty convenient. There's also the radio antenna signal here at the very bottom left-hand corner. That being said, this model is lacking a LED front light, so you're not going to be able to see it quite as easily in darker environments, maybe something they could add in a future generation model. There's no tracking functions like a pedometer or taking a look at compass, barometer. Those features are missing on this model. Now, to activate the voice prompts, it's actually pretty easy. We can just tap on the mode key here once, telling us that right now we're in the Pacific time. We can also read back the time.
The time is 7:24 p.m.
And also the date.
Today is Friday, August 16th.
And you can also long hold on the mode key for a couple of seconds.
Set alarm.
And the prompts also tell you how to operate the watch. For example, it said there earlier to change the alarm, press the 4 o'clock button, which is that time key. So you'll be able to more easily operate it using the spoken instructions. You don't have to really rely on the user manual as a result.
Press 10 o'clock button to set.
So in case you're traveling to regions that don't really have the radio wireless reception, you can set it manually as well. Now, speaking of how this kind of works, on the guide stating your talking watch is a single band radio controlled watch. The National Institute of Standards and Technology radio station continuously broadcasts the time signal at 60 kilohertz, and this WWVB station derives its signal from the NIST atomic clock in Boulder, Colorado. So it should automatically account for daylight savings time changes as well. So pretty neat. That being said, this seems to only function primarily again in the United States. So if you are going to, say, Asia or Europe where they're not really broadcasting this over radio frequency, then obviously this automatic setting feature is not going to function. But if you happen to be in a zone where it's applicable, it definitely is pretty cool that you don't have to fiddle around with any settings at all. Alright, so that is more or less it as far as a kind of hands-on look at a haul of digital watches from AliExpress. Although these days smartwatches have kind of become the norm as wearables, and this kind of takes us back into a simpler time, no pun intended, there's still a few unique things setting these apart from other watches I've seen. Whether it's the atomic radio as well as the loudspeaker, or the built-in compass as well as added water resistance functions of North Edge, they might be worth considering if you are looking at these specialty functions and you don't mind carrying something a little bit more simple. So these can be neat to consider also if you're going longer stretches, you don't have a power outlet available, lasting just a little bit longer before you have to change out the batteries instead of charging it. So anyways, if interested, you can check out more details in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews, again a collection of some interesting digital watches from AliExpress.